Orphaned 5-year-old twins knock on Millionaire's mansion door with shocking truth. He calls 991. Before we dive into this incredible story, drop a comment below and tell us where you're watching from. Enjoy the journey. Thunder crashed through the night sky as two tiny figures stumbled through the pouring rain. Emma and Lily Harper, barely 5 years old, clutched each other's hands as they ran down the dark country road. Their thin nightgowns were soaked through, and their bare feet were cut and bleeding from the gravel. "Don't look back, Lily," Emma whispered, her voice trembling, but determined. At 5 years old, she was exactly 3 minutes older than her twin sister, and those 3 minutes had made her the protector. "We can't go back to that place, not ever." Behind them, the lights of Riverside Orphanage grew dimmer with each step. They had escaped through a broken window in the basement after another night of cruel punishment from Director Harrison, who believed children should be seen and not heard. The sisters had endured months of neglect, cold meals, and harsh words, but tonight had been different. Tonight, Harrison had threatened to separate them. "I'm scared, Emma," Lily whispered, her voice barely audible over the storm. Despite being twins, the girls were like two sides of the same coin. Where Emma was brave and outspoken, Lily was quiet and observant, her wide blue eyes taking in every detail around her. Lightning illuminated the road ahead, revealing a massive iron gate, and beyond it, a mansion that looked like something from a fairy tale. Warm golden light glowed from its windows, promising warmth and safety. "Look, Lily," Emma said, pointing toward the house. "Maybe the people there will help us." The twins approached the grand front door, their small fists barely making a sound as they knocked. Inside, they could hear footsteps approaching. The door opened to reveal a tall man in his mid-40s, with kind but tired eyes and graying hair. James Whitmore had been working late in his study when he heard the soft knocking. "Please, sir," Emma said, stepping protectively in front of Lily. "We're very hungry and we don't have anywhere to go. Could you maybe give us some food?" James stared at the two bedraggled children, his heart clenching unexpectedly. Something about their desperate situation reminded him painfully of his own son, Benjamin, who had passed away from leukemia 2 years ago. The loss had left James a broken man, rattling around his empty mansion with nothing but memories and regret. "Good heavens," he murmured, kneeling to their eye level. "You're both soaking wet. Where are your parents?" "We don't have any," Lily whispered, finally finding her voice. "We lived at the orphanage, but we had to leave." James felt something stir in his chest, an emotion he hadn't experienced since Benjamin's death. Looking at these two vulnerable children, he saw an opportunity to ease the aching loneliness that had consumed him for so long. What James didn't know was that this simple act of kindness would soon put all their lives in terrible danger. "Come inside before you catch pneumonia," James said gently, stepping aside to let the girls enter. The mansion's warmth enveloped them like a protective embrace as they stood dripping on the marble foyer floor. Mrs. Catherine Morrison, the family's longtime housekeeper, appeared from the kitchen. At 55, she had worked for the Whitmore family since before Benjamin was born, and her maternal instincts immediately kicked in at the sight of the bedraggled children. "Oh my goodness, Mr. Whitmore," she gasped, rushing toward the twins. "These poor little angels are frozen to the bone. Kate, could you please draw them a warm bath and find some of Benjamin's old clothes?" James asked, his voice catching slightly on his son's name. As Mrs. Morrison led the girls upstairs, Emma whispered to Lily, "He seems nice, doesn't he? His eyes are sad, but they're kind." After their bath and a hot meal of soup and sandwiches, the twins found themselves in Benjamin's preserved bedroom. James had kept everything exactly as it was the day his son died, unable to bear changing anything. The room was filled with books, toys, and model airplanes that Benjamin had loved building. "This was my son's room," James explained quietly, watching as Emma carefully touched a toy car on the nightstand. "He was 7 when he got sick." Lily approached a photograph on the dresser, showing a smiling boy with James's eyes and a woman's gentle smile. "He looks happy," she said softly, "like he knew he was loved." The simple observation hit James like a physical blow. His son had indeed been loved, cherished every single day of his short life. "You can sleep here tonight," James said, his voice thick with emotion. "Tomorrow I'll contact social services and we'll figure out what to do." As he turned to leave, Emma called out, "Mr. Whitmore? Thank you for being kind to us. Most grown-ups aren't." That night, James lay awake thinking about the twins' words. When had the world become so cruel to children? And why did seeing them in Benjamin's room feel less like a violation and more like healing? What he didn't notice was the black sedan, parked across the street, its occupant making a phone call. "Marcus Sullivan here," the man said into his phone. "We have a problem. James has taken in 2 homeless children. This could complicate our timeline significantly." The voice on the other end was crisp and calculating. "How significantly?" "If he gets attached to them, he might start making different decisions about the company. We can't afford emotional complications right now. The merger goes through next month and then James Whitmore becomes expendable," the voice finished. "Keep monitoring the situation. If those children become a real threat to our plans, we'll handle them accordingly." Marcus ended the call and started his car, his mind already calculating how 2 innocent little girls might need to disappear to protect his multi-million-dollar scheme. 1 week had passed since the twins' arrival and the Whitmore mansion had transformed. Laughter echoed through halls that had been silent for 2 years. Emma's fearless curiosity reminded James of Benjamin's adventurous spirit, while Lily's quiet observations often surprised him with their wisdom. "Mr. James," Emma announced one morning, marching into his study with Lily trailing behind. "We've decided you need to eat breakfast with us every day. Mrs. Kate says you only drink coffee and that's not food." James looked up from his business documents, a smile tugging at his lips. "Is that so? And what makes you 2 the experts on proper nutrition?" "We know what it's like to be hungry," Lily said simply, her blue eyes serious. "Food tastes better when you share it with people you care about." That afternoon, while playing in the mansion's vast garden, Emma spotted a large German shepherd that had wandered onto the property. Without hesitation, she stepped in front of Lily as the dog approached. "Stay back, Lily," Emma commanded, spreading her arms wide despite being terrified herself. "I'll protect you." James, who had been watching from the window, felt his breath catch. It was exactly what Benjamin would have done for a younger child. The dog turned out to be friendly, but Emma's instinctive courage moved him deeply. That evening, for the first time since Benjamin's death, James joined the girls for dinner at the large dining table instead of eating alone in his study. As they shared stories and laughed at Emma's dramatic reenactments of their adventures exploring the mansion, James felt something he'd thought was gone forever. "Joy. You know," he said quietly as Mrs. Morrison served dessert. "I've been thinking about making your stay here more permanent." The twins exchanged glances of pure happiness. "Really?" Emma whispered. "We could stay forever?" "We'll see," James replied, his heart full for the first time in 2 years. Their celebration was interrupted by the doorbell. Mrs. Morrison returned with Marcus Sullivan, James's business partner, whose sharp suit and calculating smile seemed out of place in the warm family scene. "James, I hope I'm not interrupting," Marcus said, his eyes immediately focusing on the twins with undisguised concern. "I wanted to discuss the Patterson merger, but I see you have company." "Marcus, meet Emma and Lily," James said proudly. "They're staying with us." Marcus's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "How wonderful. James, might we speak privately about the urgent business matters?" As the adults talked in hushed tones, Lily noticed how Marcus kept glancing at them with an expression that made her stomach feel funny. Not angry exactly, but something worse. Something calculating. After Marcus left, Emma found Lily sitting quietly by the window. "What's wrong?" she asked. "That man doesn't like us being here," Lily said softly. "And I think he doesn't want Mr. James to be happy." Later that night, Marcus made another phone call from his car. "The situation is worse than I thought. James is getting attached to these children. He's talking about permanency, adoption even. We need to accelerate everything." How much time do we have? Amanda Cross, his secretary and secret accomplice, asked from the other end. Not long. If James starts making major life changes, he might alter his will, change business decisions. We can't let sentiment destroy 3 years of planning. What do you suggest? Marcus's voice turned cold. Those children need to go back where they came from, and James needs to have his accident before he can make any legal commitments to them. The predator was closing in, and 2 innocent little girls had unknowingly become the only thing standing between their new father figure and a killer. Would you girls like to see where I work? James asked over breakfast 3 days later. The twins had been begging to accompany him to Whitmore Industries, curious about his mysterious business meetings. Really? Emma bounced in her chair. Can we see your big office with all the important papers? Lily nodded eagerly, though she was more interested in observing the people James worked with. Something about Marcus's last visit still bothered her. Whitmore Industries occupied a sleek 40-story building downtown. As they entered the marble lobby, employees greeted James warmly, many smiling at the sight of the twins holding his hands. For the first time in years, their CEO looked genuinely happy. Mr. Whitmore, a crisp voice called out. Amanda Cross, Marcus's secretary, approached with practiced efficiency. At 35, she was strikingly beautiful but cold, her perfect red hair pulled back severely and her smile never reaching her green eyes. Amanda, I'd like you to meet Emma and Lily, James said. Girls, this is Ms. Cross. She helps keep our company running smoothly. Amanda's smile faltered slightly as she looked at the twins. How charming. I wasn't aware you were bringing children to the office. It's a bring your family to work kind of day, James replied, missing the sharp look Amanda exchanged with Marcus, who had appeared from around the corner. While James gave them a tour of his office, the twins noticed things adults might miss. When Marcus thought no one was looking, he slipped into James's office and quickly photographed documents on his desk with his phone. Amanda kept checking her watch nervously, and both adults spoke in hushed, urgent tones whenever James stepped away. Emma, Lily whispered as they colored in the conference room while James attended a brief meeting. Watch Ms. Amanda and Mr. Marcus. Through the glass walls they could see Amanda and Marcus in heated discussion. Though they couldn't hear the words, their body language screamed argument. Marcus gestured angrily toward James's office while Amanda kept shaking her head and pointing at her watch. When James returned, both adults immediately separated and put on bright, fake smiles. Everything all right? James asked, noticing the tension. Of course, Marcus replied smoothly. Just discussing the quarterly reports, nothing that can't wait. But Emma had noticed something important. Mr. James, she said innocently, why did Mr. Marcus take pictures of your papers when you were gone? The room went dead silent. Marcus's face flushed red while Amanda's went pale. Pictures? James asked, confused. Children have such active imaginations, Marcus said quickly, forcing a laugh. You know how they misinterpret things they see. Emma doesn't lie, Lily said quietly, her voice barely audible but firm. She saw him with his phone pointed at your desk. James looked between his business partner and the children, uncertainty flickering in his eyes. Marcus, James, surely you're not going to take the word of 2 children over your business partner of 15 years, Marcus said, his tone carrying a subtle threat. Perhaps bringing them here wasn't the best idea. The ride home was quiet, but that evening as James tucked them into bed, Emma grabbed his hand. Mr. James, we're not making up stories. Something felt wrong about those people today. We want to protect you, Lily added softly, the same way you protected us from the rain. James felt a chill run down his spine. Children often sensed things adults missed, and if his own business partner was hiding something, I believe you, he said finally. From now on, we look out for each other. Deal? Deal, both girls whispered. But across town, Marcus was making plans that would put their newfound family in deadly danger. Over the next week, Emma and Lily became James's unofficial bodyguards. They insisted on accompanying him to the office twice more, claiming they wanted to draw pictures in the conference room. But they had a secret mission, protecting their new father from whatever Marcus and Amanda were planning. Operation Save Mr. James, Emma whispered to Lily as they set up their coloring books. They had developed a system. Emma would distract the adults with her chatterbox personality while Lily, naturally quiet and easily overlooked, would slip away to investigate. Remember, if you see anything scary, come find me immediately, Emma instructed, sounding far older than her 5 years. Their first real discovery came when Lily, pretending to look for the bathroom, wandered into Marcus's office. His desk was covered with legal documents that didn't look like the normal business papers James showed them. These had official seals and signatures, but something was wrong. Lily couldn't read all the words, but she recognized James's name on several papers. What confused her was that the signature looked different from the one she'd seen James use. She quickly took a mental picture of the paper's layout, her young mind naturally good at remembering details. There you are. Amanda's sharp voice made Lily jump. Little girls shouldn't wander off alone. I was looking for the potty, Lily said in her smallest voice, playing up her shyness. Amanda's green eyes studied her suspiciously. The bathroom is down the hall. Next time, ask for help. As Amanda escorted her back, Lily heard her mutter under her breath. Nosy little brat. The second breakthrough came during their next visit. While Emma kept Marcus busy by asking endless questions about his computer, Lily hid under the conference table during a phone call Amanda thought was private. The timeline is accelerating, Amanda said in hushed tones. He's getting too attached to those children. If he adopts them legally, it complicates everything. Lily held her breath, not understanding all the words but knowing they were talking about her and Emma. We need to eliminate the James problem before he changes his will, Amanda continued. The board meeting is next Friday. Can you have everything ready by then? The voice on the other end was too quiet for Lily to hear, but Amanda's response made her blood run cold. Good. Make it look like an accident. Natural causes would be even better. Those children will be back in the system where they belong, and we'll finally have control of Whitmore Industries. Lily nearly gasped out loud but caught herself just in time. She crawled silently from under the table and found Emma, her heart pounding so hard she was sure everyone could hear it. We need to go home now, she whispered urgently to her sister. That evening, the twins sat in Benjamin's room, trying to make sense of what they'd discovered. So Mr. Marcus and Ms. Amanda want to hurt Mr. James? Emma asked, her young mind struggling with the concept of adults wanting to hurt other adults. I think so, Lily said quietly. They want to take away his company, and they think we're making it harder for them. We have to tell him, Emma declared, but when they tried to explain what they'd heard, James gently dismissed their concerns. Sweetheart, sometimes adult conversations sound scarier than they really are, he said, tucking them into bed. Marcus and I have been business partners for 15 years. He would never hurt me. As James left their room, the twins looked at each other with determination beyond their years. If the grown-ups won't listen, Emma whispered, then we'll have to save him ourselves. Neither of them noticed Amanda's car parked outside the mansion, or the telephoto lens pointed at their bedroom window. The next morning brought troubling news. James received a call from his lawyer about accelerating the adoption process, but when he tried to reach the social worker assigned to their case, he was told she was unavailable indefinitely. That's strange, Mrs. Morrison commented as she served breakfast. Yesterday they said everything was proceeding normally. Emma and Lily exchanged worried glances. They'd overheard James telling Mrs. Morrison the night before that he planned to officially adopt them within the month. Now suddenly there were delays? Don't worry, girls, James assured them, but they could see the concern in his eyes. Sometimes paperwork takes longer than expected. Later that day, Marcus made an unexpected visit to the mansion. James, we need to discuss the Peterson merger immediately, he said, barely acknowledging the twins who were playing in the living room. Can it wait until tomorrow? James asked. I promised the girls we'd build that treehouse this afternoon. Marcus's expression darkened. Since when do business decisions get postponed for children's activities? Since I became a father again, James replied firmly. The words hit Marcus like a physical blow. A father. If James was truly committed to these children, he might start making different financial decisions, changing his will, restructuring the company to provide for their future. Everything Marcus had worked for could crumble. Of course, Marcus said, forcing a smile. Family first, I understand completely. But Emma noticed how Marcus's hands clenched into fists when he thought no one was looking. That evening, while James was on a conference call in his study, the twins decided to do more investigating. They'd learned that Marcus often stayed late at the office, which meant his computer might have important information. We need proof, Emma whispered as they snuck downstairs to James's home office. Something Mr. James can't ignore. Lily found Marcus's business card on James's desk and memorized the numbers written on the back. Then Emma discovered something that made her stomach drop. A small glass vial hidden behind books on the shelf, labeled with a medical name she couldn't pronounce. That's not Mr. James's medicine, Lily observed. He doesn't take any medicine. As they examined the vial, they heard footsteps approaching. Quickly hiding the evidence, they pretended to be playing when James entered. "What are you two doing in here?" he asked. "Just exploring," Emma said innocently. "This house has so many interesting hiding places." But their investigation had been noticed. Outside, Amanda lowered her binoculars and made a phone call. "They're getting too curious," she reported to Marcus. "I saw them searching through James's office. They found something that made them react." "How much do you think they understand?" Marcus asked. "Does it matter? They're 5 years old, but they're not stupid. And James is starting to listen to them more than he listens to us." Marcus was quiet for a long moment. "Then we moved to phase 2. Tomorrow I'll contact Riverside Orphanage. Those children need to go back where they came from." "And James? Once the children are gone and he's emotionally vulnerable, we implement the final solution. The board meeting is in 3 days. Everything needs to be completed by then." Amanda smiled coldly. "Understood. It's almost a shame, really. Those little girls actually seem to care about him." "Sentiment is a weakness, Amanda, and weakness gets people killed." As the twins slept peacefully in Benjamin's room, they had no idea that their time with James was about to be cut brutally short, and that their new father's life hung in the balance. The next afternoon, James took the twins to his office for what he said might be their last visit for a while. "Some important meetings are coming up," he explained, "and I need to focus on business." Emma and Lily knew this was their final chance to gather evidence. While James met with clients, they convinced Mrs. Morrison to let them wait in the building's small library, adjacent to the executive offices. "We'll be very quiet," Lily promised. "We just want to read picture books." What they really wanted was to eavesdrop on Marcus and Amanda, who they'd seen entering the conference room for a private strategic meeting. Emma kept watch while Lily crawled through the connecting door that led to the conference room's supply closet. From there, she could hear every word through the thin wall. "The Riverside Orphanage director is expecting my call," Marcus was saying. "He's agreed to take the children back immediately, no questions asked. A generous donation to their building fund ensured his cooperation." "And James won't be able to fight it?" Amanda asked. "He has no legal standing. They're not his children. Just temporary wards. Once they're gone, he'll be devastated, vulnerable. That's when we strike." Lily's heart hammered as she pressed closer to the wall. "The poison will take effect slowly," Marcus continued. "During tomorrow's board meeting, James will experience what appears to be a heart attack. Completely natural for a man under stress who's just lost his beloved surrogate children." "The antidote?" Amanda inquired. "Will be nowhere to be found. By the time paramedics arrive, it'll be too late. As senior partner, I'll inherit control of Whitmore Industries. The company will be mine, and the Peterson merger will make us both very wealthy." "What about the real cause of death? Won't an autopsy show?" "The compound I'm using metabolizes within hours, leaving no trace. It'll look like natural cardiac arrest brought on by emotional trauma. Perfect alibi." Lily felt sick to her stomach. They were going to kill James and send her and Emma back to the horrible orphanage. She had to tell Emma immediately. As she started to crawl back, her elbow knocked against a metal filing cabinet. The sound echoed through the supply closet. What was that? Amanda's voice sharpened. Check it out, Marcus ordered. Lily's blood turned to ice as she heard footsteps approaching the supply closet door. She was trapped. If they found her, they'd know she'd overheard everything. The door handle turned slowly. Lily? Emma's voice called from the library. Mrs. Morrison is looking for us. The footsteps paused. Just the children playing, Amanda said dismissively. They're too young to understand anything anyway. Let's hope so, Marcus replied. Because if anyone interferes with tomorrow's plan, they won't, Amanda assured him. After tomorrow, James Whitmore will be dead, and those little girls will be someone else's problem. Lily waited until their voices moved away before crawling back to Emma, tears streaming down her face. They're going to kill Mr. James tomorrow, she whispered urgently, and send us back to Riverside. Emma's face went white. We have to stop them. How? No one believes us. Emma grabbed her sister's hands. Then we make them believe. We save Mr. James ourselves. But as they hugged each other for courage, neither twin noticed Marcus watching them from the doorway, his cold eyes calculating exactly how much two 5-year-old girls could have overheard. Marcus stepped into the library, his footsteps deliberate and menacing. Emma instinctively moved in front of Lily, but there was nowhere to run. Well, Marcus said, closing the door behind him. 2 little girls all alone. How convenient. We're just reading, Emma said, her voice trembling but defiant. Mrs. Morrison knows we're here. Marcus smiled, but it was the kind of smile that made both twins want to hide. I'm sure she does. But Mrs. Morrison is busy helping your father with his meetings. No one will disturb us for quite some time. He pulled up a chair and sat down, his tall frame looming over them. Now I'm curious, were you really reading, or were you perhaps listening to conversations that weren't meant for little ears? Lily pressed closer to Emma, her whole body shaking. She'd never been more terrified in her life, not even during the worst nights at Riverside Orphanage. We don't know what you're talking about, Emma said, but her voice cracked. Children are terrible liars, Marcus observed coldly. Your sister's face tells me everything I need to know. She heard every word, didn't she? Before Emma could answer, Amanda entered the library, locking the door behind her. Are we having a problem here? She asked sweetly, but her green eyes were as cold as winter. These 2 little eavesdroppers know more than they should, Marcus explained. The question is, what do we do about it? Amanda knelt down to the twins' eye level, her perfect smile never wavering. You know, girls, children who tell tales often have very sad accidents. They fall downstairs or get lost in the woods or simply disappear. You can't hurt us, Emma said desperately. Mr. James will look for us. Will he? Marcus asked. Even if he believes you're safely back at Riverside Orphanage where you belong? The twins' hearts sank. They were going to be sent away. And James would never know what really happened to him. Here's what's going to happen, Marcus continued. You're going to go home with James like good little girls. You won't say a word about our conversation. And tomorrow, after James has his unfortunate accident, you'll be returned to your proper place. We won't let you hurt him, Lily whispered, finding her voice for the first time. Amanda laughed, a sound like breaking glass. And how exactly do you plan to stop us? You're 5 years old. No one takes children seriously, especially orphan children with no real family. Marcus checked his watch. James will be finishing his meeting soon. We should return you to Mrs. Morrison before you're missed. He leaned closer, his voice dropping to a threatening whisper. Remember, girls, one word about this conversation, and you'll discover just how easily children can disappear forever. As they were escorted back to Mrs. Morrison, Emma squeezed Lily's hand 3 times, their secret signal that meant stay strong. They had less than 24 hours to save James's life, and no one who would believe them. But Emma had inherited more than just James's kindness. She had her own fierce determination, and she would not let the only father she'd ever known be murdered without a fight. That evening, as James tucked them into bed, completely unaware of the danger surrounding him, Emma made a silent promise. Tomorrow she and Lily would find a way to expose Marcus and Amanda no matter the cost. The final battle for their family was about to begin. The next morning arrived with deceptive calm. James was unusually cheerful at breakfast, excited about the important board meeting that would determine the future of Whitmore Industries. This could be the biggest deal in our company's history, he told the twins as he adjusted his tie. Marcus has been working on this merger for months. Emma and Lily exchanged terrified glances. James had no idea he was walking into a death trap. Maybe you shouldn't go today, Emma suggested desperately. You could say you're sick. James chuckled, ruffling her hair. Nice try, sweetheart, but this meeting is too important to miss. I'll be back for dinner and then we'll work on that treehouse, I promise. As James's car pulled away, the twins raced to Mrs. Morrison. We have to go to Mr. James's office right now, Emma declared urgently. Whatever for, dear? Mrs. Morrison asked, puzzled by their distress. Because Mr. Marcus is going to hurt him, Lily cried out. Please, you have to believe us. Mrs. Morrison knelt down, studying their faces. She'd raised enough children to know when they were telling the truth. What kind of hurt? Poison, Emma whispered. During the meeting, we heard them planning it. The housekeeper's face went pale. Get your coats. We're going downtown right now. The drive to Whitmore Industries felt endless. Emma kept checking Mrs. Morrison's phone for the time while Lily pressed her face against the window, willing the car to go faster. The meeting started at 10, Mrs. Morrison muttered, weaving through traffic. It's already 10:30. When they burst into the building's lobby, the receptionist tried to stop them. I'm sorry, but the executive floor is closed for the board meeting. This is an emergency, Mrs. Morrison declared, pushing past security, with the twins in tow. They reached the 42nd floor to find the conference room filled with distinguished men in expensive suits. Through the glass walls, they could see James at the head of the table, looking confident and successful. Marcus stood beside him, holding a crystal pitcher of water and speaking animatedly about profit projections. Amanda hovered nearby with a tray of glasses. We're too late, Lily whispered in horror as they watched Marcus pour water into a glass and hand it directly to James. No, we're not, Emma declared, and before anyone could stop her, she burst through the conference room doors. Don't drink that, she screamed at the top of her lungs. Mr. James, don't drink anything. The entire boardroom turned to stare at the little girl who had just disrupted the most important business meeting of the year. James's face showed a mixture of embarrassment and concern. Emma, what are you doing here? The water is poisoned, she cried, pointing at Marcus. He and Ms. Amanda are trying to kill you. Marcus laughed nervously. Gentlemen, I apologize. These are James's foster children. They have quite the imagination. But Lily had spotted something the adults missed. Mr. James, she called out, her quiet voice somehow carrying across the room. Look at Mr. Marcus's jacket pocket. All eyes turned to Marcus, who instinctively put his hand over his breast pocket. Emma darted forward and, before he could react, pulled out a small glass vial, identical to the one they'd found in James's office. This is the poison, she announced to the stunned boardroom. They were going to make it look like you had a heart attack. The room erupted in chaos as Marcus lunged for the vial, but James caught his wrist. Marcus, James said quietly, his voice deadly calm. I think we need to talk. The twins had done it. They'd saved their father's life, but their ordeal was far from over. The boardroom fell silent except for the sound of Marcus's heavy breathing. James still held his business partner's wrist in an iron grip, the mysterious vial between them like evidence of betrayal. This is ridiculous, Marcus said, trying to force a laugh. James, surely you don't believe these children over 15 years of partnership? But James was studying the vial and something cold settled in his stomach. What is this, Marcus? Probably some medication the child found lying around, Amanda interjected quickly. Children pick up all sorts of things. We found one just like it in your office at home, Lily said quietly, her small voice carrying clearly through the tension. Hidden behind the books. The color drained from Marcus's face. James's grip tightened. Emma, James said carefully, never taking his eyes off Marcus, tell me exactly what you overheard. They said they were going to poison you during this meeting, Emma began, her voice growing stronger with each word. Ms. Amanda said it would look like a heart attack, and Mr. Marcus said no one would find any evidence because the poison disappears from your body. One of the board members, Mr. Richardson, pulled out his phone. I'm calling security. Wait, James said. He looked directly at Marcus, searching the face of someone he'd trusted for years. Is there something you want to tell? Me? Marcus's composure finally cracked. Those little brats have ruined everything, he snarled, his mask of friendship falling away completely. Do you have any idea how long I've planned this? 3 years of careful preparation, waiting for the right moment? The boardroom gasped. Collectively, Amanda tried to slip toward the door, but Mrs. Morrison blocked her path. You were really going to kill me? James asked, his voice barely above a whisper. You were supposed to die broken-hearted and alone, Marcus spat. Grieving for your dead son, no family, no purpose, but these children ruined that. They made you happy again, made you want to change things. Change what things? Your will, your company structure, everything. I spent years positioning myself to inherit control of Whitmore Industries when you inevitably drank yourself to death or had a breakdown. But then these orphans showed up and suddenly you're talking about adoption, about building a future for them. The pieces clicked into place for James. The delayed adoption paperwork, the social worker becoming unavailable. That was you. Amanda finally spoke, her voice desperate. We had to protect our investment. If you'd adopted those children, they'd have inherited everything. We couldn't let sentiment destroy our plans. Our plans? Emma asked, confused by the adult motivations she couldn't fully understand. They wanted to steal Mr. James's company, Lily explained to her sister with startling clarity. And they thought if he died, no one would stop them. Mr. Richardson was already on the phone with building security. We need police up here immediately, and paramedics to test this substance. Marcus made one last desperate play. James, we can work this out. These children, they'll just complicate your life. Send them back to where they belong, and we can forget this whole misunderstanding. The suggestion hung in the air like poison itself. James's response was quiet but absolute. These children saved my life. They're not going anywhere. But even as security arrived and Marcus and Amanda were taken into custody, James noticed the fear in his daughter's eyes. They'd been through too much for children so young. The real test of their new family was just beginning. That evening, as police finished taking statements and Marcus and Amanda were led away in handcuffs, James thought the worst was over. The twins had saved his life and now they could finally move forward as a real family. He was wrong. The doorbell rang at 8 o'clock, just as they were finishing a celebratory dinner. Mrs. Morrison answered it and returned with a grim expression, followed by 2 stern-looking officials and Director Harrison from Riverside Orphanage. Mr. Whitmore, the lead official said, showing his badge. I'm Agent Peterson from Child Protective Services. We're here regarding Emma and Lily Harper. James instinctively moved closer to the twins who pressed against his sides. What about them? We've received reports that these children have been living here without proper legal authorization, Agent Peterson continued. Director Harrison has informed us that they ran away from his facility without permission. Director Harrison stepped forward, his cold eyes fixed on the twins. Emma and Lily are wards of the state under my care. They must be returned immediately. That's impossible, James said firmly. I'm in the process of adopting them. We've filed all the paperwork. Actually, sir, the second official consulted her clipboard. Our records show that adoption proceedings were never officially initiated. There's no legal documentation giving you guardianship of these children. The words hit James like a physical blow. He thought of Marcus's smug admission about interfering with the adoption process, the delayed paperwork, the unavailable social workers. But they saved my life today, James protested desperately. These children are heroes. You can't just take them back to that place. I understand your attachment, Mr. Whitmore, Agent Peterson said, not unkindly. But the law is clear. Children cannot remain in unofficial placements regardless of the circumstances. Emma grabbed James's hand tightly. We don't want to go back, she whispered, tears streaming down her face. Please don't make us leave. Lily, who rarely spoke to strangers, found her voice. Mr. James is our family now. We belong here. Director Harrison's expression remained cold. These children are disruptive influences who require strict discipline. The longer they remain in this indulgent environment, the harder it will be to correct their behavioral problems. Behavioral problems? James's voice rose angrily. These are two brilliant, brave little girls who exposed a murder plot. The only problem here is your facility's treatment of children. Nevertheless, Agent Peterson said, they must come with us tonight. You can file proper adoption papers through the appropriate channels, but that process typically takes 6 to 12 months. 6 to 12 months. James's heart shattered as he realized what that meant. By the time he could legally adopt them, these precious children would have endured months more of institutional neglect. Mrs. Morrison appeared with a small suitcase, her own eyes red with tears. I packed their things, she said quietly. As the officials waited by the door, James knelt down to the twins' eye level. This isn't goodbye, he promised, his voice breaking. I will move heaven and earth to bring you home. This is your home, and I am your father. Nothing will change that. Emma threw her arms around his neck. We love you, Daddy James. The word daddy nearly destroyed him. Lily joined the embrace, and for a moment, the three of them held each other like they could somehow stay together, through sheer force of will. But the officials were waiting, and the law was the law. As the car disappeared into the night with his daughters inside, James Whitmore stood alone in his mansion, more broken than he'd ever been after losing Benjamin. The twins were gone, and he had no idea if he'd ever see them again. Back at Riverside Orphanage, Emma and Lily sat on the thin, uncomfortable mattress they'd been forced to share, staring at the gray walls they'd hoped never to see again. The other children gave them a wide berth, having heard Director Harrison's stern warnings about troublemakers who think they're better than everyone else. We have to get back to Daddy James, Emma whispered, using the name that felt so natural now. What if Marcus's friends try to hurt him while we're gone? Lily nodded, her mind working through possibilities. Mr. Marcus is in jail, but maybe he told other bad people about Daddy James. Meanwhile, at the mansion, James paced his empty study like a caged animal. Every room held memories of laughter that had filled his home for such a brief, precious time. Benjamin's room, where the twins had slept so peacefully, now felt like a tomb again. Mrs. Morrison found him there at midnight, staring at the twins' forgotten stuffed rabbit. They'll be back, Mr. Whitmore, she said gently. Those girls belong here, and everyone knows it. The legal system doesn't care where they belong, James replied bitterly. I should have filed the adoption papers the day they arrived. I should have protected them better. What neither of them knew was that Marcus, despite being in police custody, had made several phone calls to associates who owed him favors. Men who were very interested in eliminating loose ends before Marcus went to trial. At the orphanage, Emma and Lily had spent 2 days planning their escape. They'd memorized the guard schedules, located the weak points in the old building's security, and most importantly, they'd convinced 3 other children to help create a distraction. Remember, Emma instructed as they prepared to slip out through the kitchen window they'd loosened, if anyone asks, you never saw us leave. Where are you really going? Asked Tommy, a 7-year-old who admired their courage. To save our daddy, Lily said simply. The escape itself was almost anticlimactic. While the other children staged a food fight in the cafeteria, drawing all the staff's attention, Emma and Lily slipped out into the rainy night, just as they had 3 weeks ago. But this time, they knew exactly where they were going. The 2-mile walk to the Whitmore mansion took over an hour in the cold rain. Their thin orphanage clothes were soaked through by the time they reached the familiar iron gates, but their determination never wavered. As they approached the house, Emma grabbed Lily's arm. Look, she whispered. 2 black cars were parked in the circular driveway, cars they didn't recognize. Through the lit windows, they could see several men in dark suits inside the mansion. "Those aren't police," Lily said, fear creeping into her voice. Emma's heart raced as she realized what they were seeing. Marcus's friends. They're here to hurt Daddy James. Inside the mansion, James sat in his living room surrounded by 3 men who had introduced themselves as business associates of Marcus Sullivan. They'd arrived with legal-looking documents and smooth explanations about protecting company assets during the transition period. What James didn't know was that these men had no intention of leaving him alive to testify at Marcus's trial. The twins crept closer to the house, desperate to help, but terrified of what they might find. Their race against time had become a fight for all their lives. Emma and Lily crept to the side of the mansion where they could peer through the living room windows. What they saw made their blood run cold. James sat rigidly in his chair, surrounded by 3 menacing men in dark suits. One held what looked like a gun, while another rifled through papers on James's desk. Mrs. Morrison was nowhere to be seen. "We need to call the police," Lily whispered. "With what?" Emma replied frantically. "We don't have a phone, and if we leave to find help, they might hurt Daddy James before we get back." Through the window, they could hear fragments of conversation. "Marcus wants to make sure you understand the situation," the leader was saying. "Your testimony could be very damaging to a lot of important people." "I'm not changing my statement," James replied firmly. "Marcus tried to murder me, and I won't pretend otherwise." The man with the gun stepped closer. "That's unfortunate, Mr. Whitmore. Marcus hoped you'd be more reasonable." Emma's mind raced. They had to do something. But what could 2 5-year-old girls do against armed men? Then she remembered something from one of Benjamin's books about home security. The mansion had a panic button in James's study that directly contacted the police, if they could somehow get to it. "Lily, remember the secret passage Mrs. Morrison showed us? The one that goes from the kitchen to Daddy James's study?" Lily's eyes widened with understanding. "But how do we get inside?" Emma pointed to the kitchen. Window they'd noticed was always left slightly open for ventilation. "We go the same way we got out of the orphanage." The next few minutes were the longest of their young lives. They slipped through the kitchen window, crept through the darkened halls, and made it to the study's hidden panel. Emma's small fingers found the panic button just as they heard footsteps approaching. The red light blinked silently, indicating the alarm had been sent, but their relief was short-lived. The study door burst open, and one of the men stood there, his face twisted with rage. "Well, well, what do we have here?" His shout brought the others running. Soon all 3 men crowded into the study, with James pushing past them, his face a mixture of shock and terror. "Emma?" "Lily, what are you doing here?" "We came to save you, Daddy," Emma said defiantly, stepping in front of her sister. "These bad men want to hurt you," the leader laughed coldly. "Touching, the whole family's here for the finale." "You're making a mistake," James said desperately. "These are just children. They have nothing to do with this." "Children who might have seen too much," the gunman replied. "Marcus mentioned these little witnesses were problematic. But in the distance, sirens were beginning to wail. The panic button had worked. "Police," the leader snarled. "You called the police." "No," James said honestly. "I didn't have the chance." All eyes turned to Emma, who stood proudly despite her fear. "I did. Daddy James taught us that brave people protect their family." The sirens grew louder. Red and blue lights began flashing through the windows. In the chaos that followed, the men tried to escape through the back of the house, but police had already surrounded the property. The twins pressed against James as officers flooded the mansion, finally making them safe. "How did you get here?" James asked, holding them tight as the last criminal was led away in handcuffs. "We escaped," Lily said simply. "We couldn't let the bad people hurt you." As dawn broke over the Whitmore mansion, father and daughters were finally truly safe. 3 hours later, the mansion buzzed with activity as police finished processing the crime scene. Detective Sarah Chen, the lead investigator, sat with James and the twins in the living room, marveling at the courage of 2 5-year-old girls. "Let me make sure I understand this correctly," Detective Chen said, reviewing her notes. "You escaped from the orphanage, walked 2 miles in the rain, and broke into your own home to save Mr. Whitmore." Emma nodded matter-of-factly. Daddy James saved us first, we were just returning the favor. The panic button you activated led us directly here, the detective continued. Without that alert, we might not have arrived in time. The three men who had threatened James were all in custody, and under interrogation they'd revealed the full extent of Marcus's criminal network. Marcus and Amanda, already facing charges for attempted murder, would now face additional charges for conspiracy and hiring criminal associates. They'll all be going to prison for a very long time, Detective Chen assured them. Mr. Whitmore, you and your daughters are heroes. My daughters, James repeated softly, the words still feeling miraculous. Mrs. Morrison appeared with hot chocolate and fresh clothes for the twins, her face beaming with pride. The whole neighborhood is talking about what these brave little girls did, she announced. The news trucks will be here soon. But James had more important things on his mind than media attention. Detective Chen, what's the legal status regarding the girls' custody? Can they stay here now? The detective smiled. After what happened last night, I think you'll find the courts very accommodating. Child Protective Services is already prepared to grant emergency custody, and Director Harrison is under investigation for his treatment of the children in his care. Emma and Lily exchanged glances of pure joy. Does that mean we can stay forever? Lily asked quietly. Forever and always, James promised, pulling them both into his arms. Later that morning, as news of their story spread across the city, something remarkable happened. The mayor called personally to commend the twins' bravery. The police department presented them with honorary junior detective badges. Most importantly, a family court judge expedited their adoption proceedings, declaring that children who risk their lives to protect their family clearly belong with that family. By noon, James was on the phone with his lawyer, fast-tracking every piece of paperwork needed to make Emma and Lily Harper legally his daughters. The adoption can be finalized within the week, his lawyer assured him. Given the circumstances, the court is waiving the usual waiting periods. That afternoon, as the twins napped in Benjamin's room, finally safe and home, James stood in his study looking at the family photo on his desk. It showed him, his late wife Sarah, and baby Benjamin, taken during happier times. But now he realized something important. This wasn't an ending to his old family. It was the beginning of a new one. Mrs. Morrison found him there an hour later, tears in his eyes but his face peaceful. They're good children, Mr. Whitmore, she said softly. Benjamin would have loved them. I think he sent them to us, James replied. I think this was always meant to be. The final chapter of their journey was about to begin. 6 months later, the Whitmore mansion sparkled with celebration. Today was adoption day, and Emma and Lily Harper were officially becoming Emma and Lily Whitmore. Judge Patricia Williams smiled warmly as she looked down at the family standing before her bench. In all my years on the family court, I've never seen a case quite like this one. 2 little girls who saved their father's life before he was even legally their father. James stood between Emma and Lily, holding their hands tightly. All 3 wore their best clothes, but more importantly, all 3 wore expressions of pure joy. Emma and Lily, the judge continued, do you understand that Mr. Whitmore will become your legal father today? That you'll be a real family forever? We've been a real family since the night we knocked on his door, Emma replied confidently. This just makes it official. The courtroom erupted in gentle laughter. Mrs. Morrison dabbed her eyes with a handkerchief from the front row while Detective Chen smiled from her seat beside the court reporter. James Whitmore, Judge Williams said, do you promise to love, protect, and care for Emma and Lily as your own daughters? I do, James replied, his voice thick with emotion. They already saved my life, now they've saved my heart. Then by the power vested in me by the state, I hereby declare this adoption final. Emma and Lily, you are now officially Whitmore daughters. The gavel came down with a satisfying thud, and suddenly the twins were in James's arms, all 3 of them crying happy tears. That evening, back at the mansion, they celebrated with a special dinner prepared by Mrs. Morrison. The dining room had been redecorated to reflect their new family, with photos of all their adventures together over the past 6 months. "I have something for you," James announced, presenting each girl with a small velvet box. Inside were delicate gold lockets, each engraved with Emma Whitmore and Lily Whitmore. "These belong to my mother," he explained. "She always said they should go to the daughters I loved most in the world." Emma fastened Lily's locket, then Lily fastened Emma's, their new tradition of taking care of each other continuing. "Daddy, James," Lily said softly. "What happened to Mr. Marcus and Ms. Amanda?" "They're in prison, sweetheart, where they can't hurt anyone else, and they'll stay there for a very long time." "Good," Emma declared. "Bad people shouldn't hurt families." Later that night, as James tucked his daughters into their own beautifully decorated bedrooms, he reflected on how much their lives had changed. The twins were no longer afraid to sleep alone, no longer woke up wondering if they'd be sent away. They had stability, love, and most importantly, they had each other. "Daddy," Emma called as he turned off her light, "do you think Benjamin would be happy that we're here?" James paused in the doorway, his heart full. "I think Benjamin sent you to me. I think he knew I needed you as much as you needed me." "We love you, Daddy," Lily added from her room across the hall. "I love you both more than all the stars in the sky," James replied, the same words his mother had once said to him. As the mansion settled into peaceful quiet, James stood in the hallway between his daughters' rooms, listening to their gentle breathing. These two remarkable little girls had taught him that families aren't just made by blood or birth certificates. Sometimes the strongest families are forged by courage, loyalty, and love that chooses to grow in the most unexpected places. Emma and Lily Whitmore were home, and they always would be.